It's middle of the 3rd century BC. Roman Republic dominates whole of Italian peninsula and is for the first time entering into a wider Mediterranean world. In the west, Mediterranean is dominated by the power of Carthage, and in the east by the vast collections of Hellenic kingdoms founded after the death of Alexander the Great. This is the age of Punic Wars. This is the time when Rome conquers Kingdom of Macedonia and Greece. But those weren't the only conflicts of early Roman expansion. Today, I will talk about one such conflict. A series of wars and peace treaties, procession of client kings, betrayals, sieges and battles, everything marred in piracy and what would today be called a genocide. This is the story of how Rome crossed to the eastern side of Adriatic Sea, to the region now known as Western Balkans, and how one of the principal provinces of the Roman world was founded. This is a story of Roman conquest of Illyria, and this particular story begins with the feast and death of a king. Now, let's cue the intro. Now, before we start with the actual conflict, we need to understand what was the situation in the area. While Rome dominated Italia and whole of Western Adriatic, the eastern side of Adriatic was divided between Greek colonies on islands and native Illyrian tribes on land, with the two different civilizations clashing on the coasts. Land of rocky hills and scattered valleys, with long rugged coastline, Balkan geography shaped numerous tribal societies. Rugged terrain of hills and mountains meant that those societies were relatively isolated one from another, and in turn it encouraged strong inward tribal identity as well as hostility towards outside world. What we know today about Illyrians comes from Greeks and then Romans, and they tell us about warlike people prone to heavy drinking, pillaging, and piracy. Indeed, was there anything resembling Illyrian identity, or were they just a bunch of neighboring tribes, is up to debate even today among historians and archaeologists. What we know for certain is that when Greeks referred to Illyria, they were referring to the tribes who lived on the territory roughly corresponding to today's northern Albania, Montenegro, Herzegovina, and southern Croatia. And when Romans conquered those territories, they spread it over a far larger area corresponding whole of administrative province named Illyria, and that province encompassed whole of today's Croatia, large parts of Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it was very different from what Greeks originally meant when they say Illyria. The most important tribes in early Roman conquest from north to south were Histri in today's Istria, Iapudi and Liburni, Dalmati in what is today known as Dalmatia, and Ardii who lived in today's Montenegro and northern Albania and who were at the time the most powerful Illyrian tribe. Greeks established a number of colonies on islands and coasts. Colonies like Corcyra on today's Corfu, Corcyra Melaina on today's island of Korčula, Faros on the island of Hvar, and Isa on the island of Vis, and also many others. Relations between those two civilizations were long and complicated. There were long times of peace and trade, but also of conflict and constant piracy. Greek colonies were part of Mediterranean trade routes, directly participating in the trade between Greek, Italy and Sicily, and they tried to expand on the coast of Adriatic Sea, while proximity of those rich colonies and also even richer trade routes was a tempting target to Illyrian pirates. In the early decades of 3rd century, relatively late in antiquity, the first Illyrian state was formed by the tribe of Ardii, centered around today's Montenegro and northern Albania. Without any strong naval power in the region, its power and influence grow unchecked. Under King Agron, it rapidly expanded inland into the Balkan area, taking all of today's southern Croatia, Herzegovina, and large swaths of northern Albania. In 250 BC, Illyrians sacked the colony of Faros on the island of Hvar and seriously threatened to cut off a colony of Isa from the wider Mediterranean world. Agron allied himself with Macedonia, and his troops regularly pillaged mainland Greece. In 230 BC, after one of a successful pillaging expedition of Aetolia, the Illyrian tribes held the feast, or RDA tribe held the feast, and from the sources, it is known that on that feast, King Agron, after a night of heavy drinking, died probably of alcohol poisoning, and well, that was it for him. That didn't mean, however, the end of Illyrian state or its power, for his wife, Queen Teuta, seized the throne in the name of their infant son. Under her rule, Illyrian piracy exploded. That same year, she conquered Corcyra on today's island of Corfu. The Corfu's strategic location enabled the Illyrians not just to endanger the Adriatic, but also to dominate all of Ionian Sea and sail under arms all the way down to Messenia. In the Adriatic, the colony of Issa was put to the siege, and in inland Greece, Illyrians sacked northern Epirus. However, this was the high watermark of Illyrian success. During the sack of Epirus, Illyrians killed some Italian merchants, but others survived and fled back to Italy, where they petitioned Roman Senate for help to secure the endangered trade routes. At the same time, colony of Issa also asked Rome for help against the Illyrian siege. Having a direct interest in securing the trade routes between Italy and mainland Greece, and also having an ally in the area in the Greek colonies, Rome decided to send envoys to Teuta. The two envoys were brothers Lucius and Aemilius Concurranius. Sources are unclear did they met Teuta in the city of Rison, the center of RDA tribe, or at the siege of Issa. What is known that Romans demanded from Illyrians to immediately cease their piracy and retreat to their territories. Teuta rejected their request and pointed out that piracy is a personal choice of her subjects and that she had no right or ability to forbid it. We don't know exactly what happened next, but there was a heated argument between the Romans and the queen, and allegedly the Romans insulted the queen and Illyrians, and she had them killed. And thus the First Roman-Illyrian War started. In 229 BC, Rome sent 200 ships and allegedly 20,000 legionaries under Gnaeus Fulvius Centimal to the region. At the very outset of the war, Demetrius of Pharos, a vassal of Queen Teuta who controlled the strategically important Corfu, switched sides and defected to the Romans. We don't know what happened next, but in 228 BC, Teuta was forced to retreat into fortress city of Rison and signed a peace treaty. Unfortunately, after 228 BC, she disappears from historical sources. Kingdom of RDA became declined Kingdom of Rome. The Illyrians were forbid to sail under arms in the Ionian Sea and also had to cease with their piracy and pillaging. In the new situation, Rome established Demetrius of Pharos as its major vassal and a client in the Eastern Adriatic, and also the Gnaeus Fulvius Centimal celebrated a triumph in Rome and got the nickname Ex Illyricis. We don't know why, but a few years after, Demetrius of Pharos rebelled against Rome and Illyrian piracy started again. His rebellion was promptly crushed and his fortress of Pharos was taken under siege and conquered by the Romans. After the conquest, they took it directly under their control, and that was their first direct territory across the Adriatic. Demetrius, however, survived and fled to Macedonia, where he served as an advisor to Macedonian king and took part in subsequent wars with Rome. Rome was left as a dominant power in Ionian and Adriatic Sea, but the conflicts against other various tribes lasted for another century. In 135 BC, the tribe of RDA, once the most powerful Illyrian tribe under Agron and Teuta, was forced to migrate from the coast into Balkan interior. That marks the end of their tribe and also of independent Illyrians. Though Eastern Adriatic was never a primary objective of Roman Republic and its imperialism, and the whole conflict happened in the shade of a larger one with Carthage, it's nonetheless the interesting theater on its own. Here, on a micro level, we can see how Roman expansion worked, entering the local theater as a mediator, often on a request on one of the belligerent sides, and establishing a very complex system of allies and client kingdoms in the region before outright conquering it and taking the direct control. If anything, this conflict reminds us that Roman conquest was much more of a long lasting generational grind than a thing of quick, shiny military victories. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. All the sources I used are down in the description. So if you enjoyed the video and watched this far, please click like below or and subscribe. That would really mean a world to me. So yeah, see ya.